In Australia, tourists Greg and Heather arrive at the dock for a shark cage diving tour. A vendor named Dave jokingly warns them that shark bit off a college kid's groin on the last trip, but they dismiss it as a joke. Tour guide Tucker soon arrives and starts asking them questions. He learns that no one knows where they are, and he makes fun of them for being so untraceable. Once aboard his boat, Tucker begins sharing tales of his close encounters with sharks. He's been diving with them since childhood and even has a large scar to show for it. When they reach the diving spot, Tucker starts tossing chum into the water to lure in the sharks. Heather gets nervous and jumps when shark fin surfaces, making her reconsider. Tucker suggests meditation to calm her nerves, but then starts singing the baby shark song. She's taken aback, but eventually finds it funny and begins to relax. They step into the cage, and Tucker lowers them into the sea. Surrounded by sharks, Heather panics at the sheer number of teeth around them. Greg reassures her, and they both marvel at the majestic creatures. Soon, they're back on the boat, and Heather is thrilled by the experience. Without warning, Tucker pulls out a knife, stabs Greg, and throws him into the water as Heather screams in horror. The next day, American surfer Zephyr enjoys some waves at the beach. Later, at the store, she overhears Moses asking for jumper cables, but they're sold out. He asks her if she has any, but she lies and says no. After paying for a Slurpee, she walks out, revealing she hid a tub of ice cream inside the cup to steal it. As she heads to her van, Moses catches her and threatens to report her unless she gives him a ride. She reluctantly agrees. During the ride, he talks nonstop, annoying Zephyr to the point where she tells him to shut up. When they arrive at his car, she notices his surfboards, and they bond over their mutual love of surfing. She warms up to him, and Moses confesses he wouldn't have snitched even if she hadn't helped him. They jumpstart his car using her van, and the radio comes on, revealing they like the same music. That night, they get intimate in Zephyr's van outside Moses' house. For fun, he tosses her fin key out the window. Afterward, they chat and get to know each other better. Moses heads inside to make breakfast, but when he comes back out, the van is gone. Zephyr is already at the beach, ready to surf. Then she realizes she forgot her fin key. She searches a nearby truck and is startled by the owner, Tucker. He offers her a spare key and compliments her bravery for surfing at night. After he leaves, she gets a message from Moses asking why she left. She replies that she wanted to catch early waves, but doesn't commit when he asks to join her. Suddenly, Tucker covers her head with a bag. Zephyr fights back, but Tucker doesn't loosen his grip until she passes out. He injects her with something, tapes her mouth, hides her in a surfboard bag, and throws her in the back of his truck. He drives to the dock, where Dave's dog growls at him. Tucker carries Zephyr onto his boat and locks her up. Hours later, Moses searches for Zephyr, but only finds her abandoned van. He calls her, but the phone is still inside the vehicle. Meanwhile, Zephyr wakes up, handcuffed to a bed in a small room. Heather is there too, along with a bucket meant for their waist. Zephyr screams, but only Tucker can hear her, and he seems to enjoy the sound. On one wall, she notices a woman's name scratched into it, hinting that Tucker has done this before. She searches for something to unlock the handcuffs, but finds nothing. Heather tells her no one will come looking for her, and Zephyr realizes she's in the same situation. Moses, on his way to work, spots Zephyr's van being towed. He rushes to the police station and explains the van is Zephyr's home, so it's odd she left it behind. The officer asks for Zephyr's full name, but Moses doesn't know it, so no report can be filed. Back on the boat, Heather sobs, fearing she'll never see her mom again. She regrets not listening to her. Her mom didn't want her to take a gap year. Zephyr opens up about growing up in foster care and coming to Australia to escape. She mentions having been in juvie too. To lighten the mood, she cracks a joke, making Heather laugh. Then Zephyr notices Heather's bikini top has underwire and asks for it. Heather removes her top and tosses it over. Zephyr successfully pulls the wire out, but before she can use it, Tucker enters. He brings them water and a sandwich, then sits too close to Zephyr, rambling about predators in the ocean. He even tastes her sweat before leaving. Zephyr tosses the top back to Heather and gets to work on the lock, but she grows dizzy and drops the wire. Heather also passes out, suggesting Tucker drug the water. He returns, takes the underwire, and Zephyr blacks out. She wakes up later, tied to a chair on the deck, where Tucker has set up a camera and lights. Heather is suspended from a crane. Tucker claims that God isn't above, but below, in the sea. He explains that he's seen Zephyr surf and thought she looked truly alive and spiritual, which is the same feeling he gets from this twisted ritual. After snipping some of Heather's hair, he wakes her up. She immediately panics. Tucker talks about how amazing sharks are and how myths have unfairly demonized them. Then he slowly lowers Heather toward the water, keeping her upper half out to film her expressions. The sharks arrive and devour Heather in seconds while Zephyr screams in horror. As Tucker turns the camera towards Zephyr, he calls it the greatest show on earth. When she's back in her room, Zephyr carves both her name and Heather's into the wall. She spots fresh paint and scratches it off, discovering a wall full of names, many victims before them. Tucker drinks and dances in the dining area, relishing the thrill of his recent kill. He labels a tape with Heather's name and stores it in a cabinet full of other tapes, each marked with a victim's name and a lock of hair. Then he grabs a blank tape and writes Zephyr's name on it. Deep underwater, Heather's remains drift silently. The next morning, Moses tries to surf, but his concern for Zephyr weighs on him. He finds a broken surfboard by the rocks and fears she may have had an accident. Meanwhile, Tucker brings Zephyr breakfast, but she kicks the tray and berates him. He tries to rationalize his actions, saying sharks are vital to the ecosystem and need to eat too. Zephyr mocks him, calling him a worm instead of a predator. This bruises his pride and he leaves. Zephyr then notices the bucket has a handle and breaks it off. That night, Tucker watches one of his tapes over dinner. He prepares a syringe with a sedative and heads toward the room. As he leans in to inject her, Zephyr stabs his neck with the bucket handle. He stumbles back and hits his head on the bed. She grabs his keys and frees herself. But Tucker regains consciousness and lunges for her. Zephyr races for the door and tries to lock it, but he forces it open. She runs upstairs, and as he follows, she manages to kick him away just enough and races to the control room. She grabs the radio to call for help. No one responds. Spotting a cruise ship in the distance, Zephyr heads to the deck and begins shouting, but the loud music on board drowns her out. Suddenly, Tucker shows up holding a knife, prompting Zephyr to toss the camera into the sea. The move distracts him just long enough for her to dive in too. She swims with all her strength, but unfortunately, the sedative takes effect and she loses consciousness. Tucker is forced to pull her back out of the water. The next morning, the police finally initiate a search for Zephyr. As the operation unfolds by the sea, Moses gets an idea. He opens an app called Wave Watch that streams live beach footage for surfers. Scanning through the previous night's clip, he spots a truck pulling away from the area with Zephyr's van. Zooming in reveals a label that reads Tucker Experience, prompting him to search for the business online. Meanwhile, Tucker stops by the dock and leaves the boat to restock. Zephyr regains consciousness and attempts to scream, but her mouth is taped shut once again. Moses eventually finds a phone number and calls the boat, but since Tucker is away, he only manages to leave a voicemail. At the store, Tucker purchases a new camera. Heading back, he gets stuck in traffic and notices a beautiful tourist, potentially his next target. Meanwhile, Moses locates the listed address and heads to the pier. He knocks on the boat's door, but there's no response. Just as he's about to give up, he hears a faint noise coming from below. He breaks a window and climbs aboard. Armed with a hook, he frantically searches the vessel, following the sound until he discovers Zephyr locked inside a room. After removing her gag, she pleads with him to call the police and find something to unlock the handcuffs. Moses rushes upstairs while dialing 911, but Tucker ambushes him. Moses tries to fight back, but Tucker overpowers him, forcing him to drop the phone before he can speak to the dispatcher. Tucker slams him to the floor, grabs the phone, and quickly says help before stabbing Moses with the hook. After kicking Moses in the face, Tucker tosses the phone aside. Moses grabs a bag and strikes Tucker, knocking him off balance, and starts choking him using the hook. Just as he's about to win the struggle, Dave suddenly appears and hits Moses, mistaking him for an intruder. Hearing Zephyr's cries, Dave follows her voice, but Tucker kills him with a stab to the head using the hook. Their dog is nearby, barking nonstop, but Tucker growls at it to send it running. He then locks the door to Zephyr's room and prepares to sail the boat to a place called Hangman Shoals. Shortly after, Moses wakes up handcuffed to the bed beside Zephyr. He asks why she ran after they were intimate. She pretends it was the waves. However, Moses sees through the lie and suggests she's afraid of commitment due to her self-loathing, but reassures her that he likes her just the way she is. At that moment, the boat halts and Tucker enters to knock Moses out again. When Moses wakes up next, he's tied to the deck beside Dave's corpse. Zephyr is cuffed to a chair and pleads with Tucker for mercy, but he ignores her. Tucker starts operating the crane, slowly lowering Moses toward the water, where sharks are already circling. Zephyr desperately offers herself instead, but Tucker mocks her and continues. As Moses hits the water, Tucker races to grab his new camera while Zephyr urges Moses not to move. Moses stays still, and the sharks quickly lose interest, swimming away. A frustrated Tucker pulls him back aboard and stabs him several times before lowering him again. Moses' blood drips into the water, drawing the sharks back. Just then, a helicopter searching for Zephyr appears in the distance. Tucker pauses and brings both captives back inside. Worried that Moses might bleed out, Zephyr faces a tough decision. She dislocates her thumb, but even then, it's not enough to slip free from the handcuffs. Tucker returns with food, tells her she's just like him, a shark, and leaves. Zephyr tries again to remove her hand, but still can't manage it. Left with no option, she begins chewing. Later that night, Tucker prepares a sedative and enters the room, only to find Zephyr gone and her thumb left behind on the pillow. She suddenly emerges from hiding, locks the door, and races to the control room to start the boat. Tucker escapes through the emergency hatch and cuts the power, bringing the vessel to a stop again. Zephyr spots a party happening on a nearby island and searches for Flare. When Tucker gets close, she fires the flare at him and runs. She hides in the kitchen, climbs onto the counter, and smashes the skylight glass to escape. But as her harness catches in the exit, Tucker breaks into the kitchen and yanks her down. They both slip. Zephyr grabs a frying pan while Tucker grabs a knife. She stabs his hand and knocks him out with the pan before fleeing again. Tucker hurries to the deck, turns on a light, and spots Zephyr swimming toward the island. He grabs his harpoon but loses track of her, so he hops onto his speedboat and speeds after her. Just as Zephyr reaches the island shore, Tucker tackles her and knocks her out, dragging her back to the boat. When Moses regains consciousness, he's handcuffed to a chair and sees Zephyr hanging over the ocean. Tucker throws water at her face to wake her and starts rambling about fish that resist capture. Zephyr's blood attracts a shark. Tucker lowers her toward the water and readies the camera. As the shark nears, Zephyr kicks it and it swims off. Enraged, Tucker jabs at the shark with a hook, but takes the weapon and swims away. Zephyr manages to snatch the hook before the shark disappears. She uses it to climb the crane's line, but the shark suddenly returns. Tucker startles her as she falls into the water. As the shark approaches, it pauses, locking eyes with Zephyr. Having also suffered from Tucker, it spares her and swims away. Zephyr climbs back on the boat and quietly moves around. Upon finding the harpoon, she uses it to shoot Tucker, knocking him into the water. The giant shark returns, lunges, and devours Tucker in one massive bite, captured perfectly by the camera. The harpoon rope tugs Zephyr into the water too, but she lets go and swims back up. She scrambles for another flare and fires it into the sky, screaming for help. A ship near the island sounds its horn in response. Zephyr rushes to Moses' side, begging him to wake up, saying he's all she has. Moses stirs and replies, "I knew it.